Monday, August 13th. I'm Scott,
I'm Rim.
and this is Geeknights. Tonight, Anonymities on te internets.
Let's do this. So I realized something just now that I never really thought about before. You know, we always have, an anecdote or something interesting at the start of the show. Well, this weekend, we mostly just relaxed. And last weekend, we also just kind of relaxed. So nothing crazy happened. We didn't go anywhere. And we kind of didn't do anything interesting enough to warrant this sort of leader, hey, how's your day bit?
I got a haircut. My hairs, they're shorter and more comfortable.
You also got your bike, well, you tried to get your bike fixed.
Well, basically, my bike, it's in perfect working order, except there's a crack in the frame. And the guy at the bike shop was really like, there's a tiny crack in the frame. You probably shouldn't ride that at all. And he's kind of right, kind of.
Well, he's right in the sense that if it weren't Scott, I'd say you should throw that bike away. It's dangerous. But Scott rides really leisurely, and he doesn't really push the bike. It's not like he's going to suddenly... Worst case, the bike would just kind of sag down, and Scott would come to a stop and go, oh.
Yep. So, and everything else works, the gears and the brakes and all that business. And the guy was like, yeah, if you want me to, I want basically, it was out in the winter outside because we don't have anywhere to put it inside. And I had it under a tarp, which wasn't good enough, apparently. And that's how it got sort of rusty and slightly damaged. And all I need is, to replace the brake and the gear cables and tighten them up and whatever. And the grips, the hand grips on the handlebars are all sticky. So we just need to replace those with ones that aren't sticky.
Yep. Now, I'm kind of a bike guy, and I could do this for Scott. But one thing I learned as a kid is that while it is very simple to do these things in terms of, what you have to manipulate, it really sucks to do it, just in general. And
it's also very difficult to get it done in such a way where it's like new. It's always slightly ghetto.
Well, partly because I don't have all the right tools. Like, I don't have the mount for the bike, so I can just mount it up and spin the gears and twist the little calibrating bits. So
Yep.
It's kind of like I know how to change my oil. It's not worth the time it takes to change my oil. I'll pay the Valvoline guy.
Yep. So he was like, yeah, something. And I think he said it was going to be $100 just for the tune-up and stuff, just to discourage me from using the bike anymore.
That is
possibly to try to sell me a new one.
That is almost certainly true, because the last time I was there, I was charged like $40 for exactly what you asked for on a much more complicated bike.
Yeah. So I figure what I'll do is I don't ride that much. I'll ride this thing around, whatever, not too hard. And maybe I'll take it to Wildwood, put it out to pasture. Maybe I'll sell it, buy a new one.
Wildwood, I think, is a good place to put it. It'll have a good retirement there.
Yeah, maybe I could get $100 for it, maybe. I mean, every other part on it is fine.
I don't know. I'd be leery about selling that to anyone, even telling them that there's something wrong with it, because no one who understands how dangerous that is would buy it. And the only people who are left are people who don't really understand that that's dangerous.
Yeah, maybe next year I'll just bring it to Wildwood, leave it there, and use it there. Because that's the thing is, at Wildwood, I have a desire to bike a lot. If I had it there, I'd probably bike up and down the boardwalk with it all the time.
God, I remember I biked up and down the boardwalk once or twice in all these years, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, it's straight, flat, slightly bumpy, good traction, lots of things to dodge.
Well, what it was that
You
month.
can go real fast.
Way back when I lived there with Scott for that month. Not this Scott, the other Scott. Though, Scott, you were there for what, 2 weeks or so?
A while.
But it was just me and Scojo and his dad, and we just lived there at the beach house for a while. And I had all of my worldly possessions except my furniture in my car. All of them. As in, you could only see out of half of the windshield and part of the driver's side window. And that was it. The car was totally full, and I had stuff on the roof, and I had stuff on the back, and I had my bike with me on a bike carrier, barely hanging on. So, of course, I rode that bike as much as I could in Wildwood, because I never brought a bike there again.
Yeah, I just wonder how I'm going to get it there. Basically, we'd have to go to Wildwood with only 2 people and my car and not so much other stuff besides my bike. And
We could do it with 3 people if we disassembled your bike the rest of the way.
it's a pain in the ass then.
If, you, me, and Emily go down later in, at the end of summer, we could do it then.
Very difficult. And annoying.
Or we could just bite the bullet and buy a bike carrier that isn't shitty.
Or take 2 cars.
My car's not going anywhere. I mean, let me put it this way. Selling my car to anyone, because Emily actually asked a while ago, hey, I need a car. When you get a new car, I'll buy your old car. I would feel about as comfortable selling my car to anyone as Scott should feel selling his bike to anyone.
What are you gonna do? The bike was cheap. I bought it cheap, and I got a whole bunch of use out of it when it was new.
It does say something, though, in that if you are serious about something and you want to buy a piece of equipment that lasts, spend the money and get exactly what you want. Because I've been using
And
the
if
same...
you're not serious about something and you're going to leave it out in the winter, you probably shouldn't spend too much money on it because you're not going to take care of it because you don't care as much and it's going to break.
Yeah, I mean, think. You spent a couple $100 on that. Imagine if you'd spent $800 on it and then it broke like that.
If I spent $800 on it, I would never have left it outside even in the greatest summer day in the universe. So...
But I mean, look, I spent that much money on my... Well, I didn't. My
It's sort of a
parents
two-way
did.
deal, whereas if you care more, you should spend more. But also, if you spend more, if you care about money and you're not just a stupidly rich person with money to burn, you're going to care more as a result of your spending more.
Man, I was so careful with that bike when I was a kid and I first got it, but 13 years later, I just leave it outside. I've never replaced the chain.
I think your deal is the same deal you had with your DS. Is you wanted a DS Lite, so you treated the DS like shit till it broke, and you want a new bike. So you're waiting for your bike to die so you have an excuse to buy a new one.
See, the thing is, I don't. I actually take care of that bike. It's one of the few things I really take care of. Not like my car. In fact...
Your much more expensive car that you finally paid off.
I've spent a lot more time working on and repairing my bike than even mechanics have spent on my car.
Yeah, but think about the trouble you've had with that car. It was repoed, and
That
you
had
crashed
nothing to
it.
do with the car. That had to do with the
But
fact
you went
that...
through all that shit for that car, and now you're just like, fuck it.
You know what? I didn't go through that for the car. I went through that because society requires that I own a car. The car, I mean, you could say, oh, everything has a spirit, and I should love my car. I put effort into that car, but no, fuck that car.
No, you shouldn't. You're crazy. It has no feelings.
And the new one is
And the
much
new one
better.
is much better.
Right. Wow. I guess that boring thing about your bike was actually a pretty good opening bit.
Well, there
That
was
the best
nothing
we
else
had.
happened this week.
What else did we do?
Nothing. Eat.
I played some video games.
I beat like 2 levels in Paper Mario.
I caught some Pokemon.
Played some Mario Strikers.
I watched
Played some FPSs.
with Emily, Alex, and Scott the next Horatio Hornblower.
I really want to watch the next one that I've never seen.
God, the short story here is simply that we like Horatio Hornblower, and we watch it kind of like as this event among the group, yelling and screaming and cheering and just enjoying it. And all these years, I've only seen up to a certain point, and I've never seen
5
past
episodes?
it. Yeah, and no one in our crew has seen past that point.
So we got to watch the 6th episode. Let's watch it today.
I don't know. I got stuff to do.
No, you don't.
I gotta watch Gankutsuo.
But you can find out what happens.
I know, but I kind of want to hold off.
What do you want to hold off for? Laudanum.
See, there are situations in lives where
You can't hold out a laudanum addiction. You'll go crazy.
I'm not going to give a specific.
You'll start thinking lamps have feelings.
There is one kind of thing, one action you can take in life occasionally, something I enjoy, that if you build up and just let the event...
It's been
kind of-
building up for years.
Yeah, and you know what? I've learned that there's no limit to how much...
There's a limit.
certain things
It's
can
pretty
build
much
up.
built up to the max.
No, because it was built up
It's
to the
fully
max.
charged.
Yeah.
If you push the button again, it will be released. You cannot charge it up anymore.
I think I can charge it up a little more.
You can't charge it up 10 more.
If we watched the last episode that we just watched again with a group of people, then we would enhance the experience by bringing more people into the fold of...
That would just create another feeling of frustration. It would fill up a different meter.
If you couldn't tell, I was trying to make a sexual metaphor here.
Oh, too bad. Let's talk about technologies.
All right, I'll do my news first because I don't have much to say about it, and Scott's news is much more important.
Uh-huh.
So there was this article on Slashdot that was actually in PC World about how, OMG, Vista takes your high-quality HD content and fucks it. And
Oh, Vista's so terrible. Oh, Vista, the worst thing ever.
Now-
I used Vista for 2 weeks because it came with my laptop. And of course, I don't use it anymore. But when I used it, it was just normal Windows with some fancy stuff on it. There wasn't anything weird going on that I noticed. It was just Windows.
Well, the thing is, I'm not going to speak from a point of authority because I don't know a lot about Vista. I don't really care about it. I only use XP because it's easier to install XP with my legitimate license than it is to install Windows 2000 with my also legitimate license that certain people accidentally stole from me and never gave back.
Yeah, and meanwhile, as much as we're Super Linux users. We have a 2000 license and an XP license and a Vista license, and they're all legitimate.
We're just not pirates anymore. What can I say?
Yeah, what do you
Plus,
do?
I like to play Steam games.
Yeah.
And it doesn't quite work 100%.
I've suddenly been playing a lot of Steam, suddenly.
We'll talk about that tomorrow, but
yeah.
oh mans. But this article, as far as I can tell, is pretty much just FUD. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's just bullshit. I mean, while it is true that Vista has a bunch of DRM stuff in it, and HD content that is flagged in a certain way or in a certain format will be downgraded if you put it over an interface like DVI that isn't set up for encryption.
Yeah, you need the HDMI that has the... so that way, basically what they're trying to prevent with this DRM technology is it's technologically feasible for someone to say, put a DRM DVD in their DVD player, play it, but then take the video output cable from the DVD player, put it into the input on a recording device, and record it at that point. So what they do is that's why HDMI exists. HDMI isn't really any better than component video or DVI. But
it's DVI plus bullshit. It's kind of like if you had a standard, like, I don't know, the little headphone jack you use for audio. And then you just put a little bit of feces on the end of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't enhance this. All it does is cause trouble.
It just it makes it encrypted so that if you have a DVD player and you use the HDMI cable, it's actually sort of impossible because of encryption without some sort of, decrypting key. Of course, we have those, but to record from the HDMI cable, the only way it works is if you plug it into an HDMI compatible monitor, and then it will play at the full HD resolution. Otherwise, if the player recognizes that you're not using HDMI, it won't do HD. It'll do some lower quality, so that way you can't steal the HD content. You can only steal the low-res content.
Now, this guy seems to be making the point that all HD content is hurt in this way by Vista, but I'm generally of the impression, now correct me if I'm wrong, Internet, but I think that the only time Vista will downgrade the quality is if the content you were trying to play is in some way encrypted in DRM by the person who made it in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, if I download an XVID that's at a ludicrous resolution and I play it with like VLC or MPlayer or maybe even Windows Media Player and I have the right codecs and I full screen it on my HD screen or my computer monitor, and I have just a VGA cable or a DVI cable, it's gonna be HD, I think. Yes? I think so.
I'm pretty sure that this
How
guy is
could it
full of
not?
crap.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah,
Is
so
that
just
it?
as much as I am generally indifferent to Windows and I generally prefer Linux, it does bother me sometimes that people who are pro Linux or pro open source get a little bit sensationalistic about, oh my god, Microsoft is how evil? So evil. And it's not always true. Granted, they did bow down and let this DRM stuff get into Windows, but at the same time, there's a very easy way to circumvent all of this DRM. It's very simple, and in fact, all of you can do it no matter what your technological skill. Don't buy DRM content. If something's DRM'd and you want to watch it, don't. Watch something that isn't DRM'd.
Or go on the BitTorrents and get the same thing without DRM on it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so in the big news.
So, back in, what year? 2003, I think?
We were still at RIT.
It was a long time ago.
I hadn't even worked at IBM yet.
Back in the days before Dig. Way back. Back in the day where Slashdot was synonymous with technology news, and we would just reload Slashdot like 20 times a day, maybe 20 times an hour if we were really bored, because that was the only place where the news was at.
I really only went to two websites back then, Slashdot and FARC.
And Penny Arcade.
Well, I don't count webcomics as websites.
Penny Arcade's different. But anyway, yes, it was all about Slashdot in those days. And Slashdot had a lot of news stories that would recur. They would come up often as new developments came out. And one of these news stories was about SCO, a company called SCO. And I'm not going to tell you all the details, because you can get every detail down to every single thing that ever happened in the court at Grok Law, as well as other websites. But basically, SCO was a company. It was a company that made some Unixes, kind of. And the company really didn't do that much other than make some business deals and sue people. So,
well, in addition to all that, the real crux of the issue was that a lot of people contributed a lot to Unix back in the day. And the actual state of who contributed what and who had rights over what was really kind of murky.
Yep.
And as a result, opportunist idiots maybe not idiots, because I think a lot of them made a lot of money off of this, decided that, hey, because of this murky legal crap, let's sue people who use Linux, which is based on Unix, for a lot of money.
It's not even based on Unix.
Well, the thing is, what they actually sued over was, hey, you're using Linux? Well, that infringes on all of our Unix stuff.
That's not really what they sued over so much either.
All right, what specifically did they sue over?
They basically said, back in the day, they licensed Unix, right? From, I guess, Novell or AT&T or someone, or Bell Labs. Who knows? Because no one's really sure who owns the Unix, really. And that's what this court case was all about. So they said, we own Unix. Anyone Unixing, we own you. You can't be Unixing. We're Unixing. And they sued, Novell and IBM and such. And how many years later? At least 4 years, possibly more than 4 years later, the court, this is the news, by the way, the court finally said, Novell owns Unix, not you. They just licensed Unix to you. You're allowed to use Unix.
Well, the thing
you
is,
can't sue anyone.
It got really more weird because SCO, the people there must have known that this was a crap fraudulent case because they basically sued but had no evidence. And then over the course of the court case, they kept trying to force IBM to provide evidence to them. So they'd say yes, somewhere in their code is our code. Tell them to give us all their code so we can find it.
How do you know it's there if you haven't seen it?
And they'd say, oh, we know. We know it's there.
Yeah.
And it just got crazier and crazier and crazier. They were talking about suing everyone who's ever used a Starnix or anything, and they were just going all over the place. Everyone was getting nutty.
Anything with Nix in it.
And even worse, the amount of money that they sued IBM for was staggering.
Well, the amount of money they were attempting to sue IBM
Well, no, they
for.
did sue. They just lost. They very much sued.
Isn't the amount of money you're suing for determined after there's a winner or loser?
Nah.
No?
It's kind of like how Bill Clinton was impeached, but he was not kicked out of office. He was impeached, however.
All right.
But the thing is, when the news first broke, way back, they were like, SCO is suing IBM. Ha! This isn't going to last long, because anyone who knew anything about technology knew pretty much immediately that it was completely fraudulent and not true and that there's no way they could win.
Nope, none of it was true, pretty much at all. And over the years, there were so many different FUD stories about this court case, like, oh, well, if this is just Microsoft trying to make people feel unsafe about using Linux to make it sort of a legal gray area.
A lot of people thought that Microsoft was secretly funding SCO, and while they might have been, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and basically this tiny little shit court case by this crazy back of the middle of nowhere company turned into this huge thing for the whole open source world, and it went on for years, and people kept paying attention to it until people stopped reading Slashdot, and then people stopped caring about it because they stopped paying attention to it.
I'd forgotten about it.
The only reason people paid attention to it is because Slashdot wouldn't shut up about it, and everyone read Slashdot.
Well, the funny thing was, in the real world, people, every now and then the news would come up and people would care. But the only reason this case took as long as it did was that everyone who knew about technology knew it was crap and could just snap their fingers and say, wow, I'm done with that. But the legal system had not a single person involved in it who knew enough to succinctly explain what was going on to a judge.
Yeah, I remember how people used to talk about, SEOs just trying to get bought by IBM, and then IBM didn't buy them. And
IBM,
then they wanted to, what's it called? They wanted to...
settle?
Yeah, settle. And no, that didn't happen either.
See, luckily they miscalculated because I did work at IBM for a while, and I liked working there. And all I really want to say is that IBM does not take shit lying down. And as a corporation, if someone causes them grief and it's big enough and it's malicious, I get the impression that IBM would actually spend more money to destroy them than they would have to spend settling with them. They would rather destroy their enemies than pacify them. And when SCO went up and bit their toe, IBM just stomped on them.
Yep. So basically, this bullshit where for years and years and years and years and years we've known that it's all bullshit. Finally, the court said, SCO, you got nothing. and they got nothing.
Now, the thing is, I think a lot of people made a lot of money off of this because the stock in SEO went up and up and up when they first made these lawsuits.
And then it went down and down and down and down.
But it kind of leveled off, and every now and then it would get a surge as SEO would say something, and people who didn't know about technology would say, oh, they're going to win that case now, and then they're going to be gigantic.
But now, down the shitter.
Pretty much as soon as the announcement was made in the courts, SEO stock dropped to almost nothing.
Yep.
It just plummeted straight down. I'd laugh, but I don't care anymore. It's kind of like finding out that Carthage finally fell 20 years after it happened and not caring.
It's like I knew that this was bullshit 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's just finally proven me right, and that's it. So I'm sure you can read all the actual details of this on Grok and Wikipedia, and if you just search on Slashdot for SEO or a billion other sites. And get all the details, but there's a crazy guy who's in charge of SEO who is involved in a bunch of other sue companies that exist only for suing.
He has said some interesting things over the last several years.
Was he also a crazy Mormon or something, or a Scientologist? I'm not sure which one.
I don't know. I'd make a Penny Arcade kind of joke about dogs and orgasms.
He's a crazy guy, and he had some crazy people with him. And
I think the funniest part is when I worked at IBM, one day I was just like, so SEO, haha. And no one in the company that I had talked to, and I talked to a lot of people, had any idea that the case even existed. That's how little IBM cared. No one even knew it was happening except their legal department.
Yep. But yeah, what it comes down to is just that, people paid attention in the geek tech community to this story so much that all these crazy details and speculations and things came out of it, most of which are just blah. Speculation. And so now this story sort of inflated to this giant monster because all the details were exposed and they went down to the very last grain of salt. And now it's over, and we never have to think about it again, let alone, talk about it again.
Well, I do know that this has proven one thing. Duke Nukem Forever is going to come out, as is Team Fortress 2.
Supposedly. Well, I know Team Fortress 2 is coming, right?
Well, yeah, there's all that marketing video, and they keep saying it's coming, but they had a lot of marketing videos a long time ago, and they said it was coming. Things of the day. So way back, we did a show about shaving and the fact that Scott and I both shave not with, modern crap, whatever, Gillette, whatever razors, but we shave with 1950s style safety razors. The big T things with an actual razor blade in it and a badger hair brush and the little...
Not a straight razor.
No.
Double-edge razor.
The thing is, I don't...
The same thing John Wayne shaved with. It was good enough for him, it's good enough for you.
Because we don't do this for any, I like the antique way of doing things or any nostalgia for the past, because straight razors really suck to use and are really hard and really dangerous. But the Mach 3 and all that shave pretty crappily, and they're stupidly expensive.
And even more important than the razor is the cream and the method of applying the cream.
Yeah.
We're not going to do another shaving episode.
No, but all I want to say is, once we started shaving, I guess, the old-fashioned way, with an actual brush and hot water and lather, it was like night and day.
Go listen to the old shaving episode.
I think it's a pretty good show.
It was a good show.
But finally, I was poking around, and I noticed a video called The Joy of Shaving. And if any of you still doubt our method of shaving and the way we do it and how it's so awesome, just watch this video, and if you like the idea of what that guy did, if you can imagine what shaving via that method felt like, then I'll just leave it at that.
All right, so Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan was my man.
Back when I was a kid, he was the man. Now, he's all right. He's not so bad. I mean, he took a bunch of roids. He knows he took a bunch of roids. He doesn't take them anymore.
I remember an interview with him on Channel 1 TV, that propaganda ad machine for middle schools. And I remember that they only asked him one question. If you went bald, would you wear a wig? And he said, no, I would not. I think wigs are stupid.
Yeah, and now he's kind of bald, and he only has hair growing in the sides and the back and stuff.
Yeah, the thing is, it makes him look a little bit majestic.
Yeah, I think that's the Hulk style. Anyway,
Hulkamania.
Yeah. So anyway, he's an all right guy, and
he's better than the Macho Man Randy Savage or the Ultimate Warrior.
He's much better than the Ultimate Warrior. Randy Savage is also kind of cool, but
Not as cool as Hulk Hogan.
No, not as cool as Hulk Hogan. You know, he's not insane. He's not a genius, but he's all right. He's not evil or anything, and I guess he does good things, and he wasn't stupid, and he didn't waste all his money, and
Yeah, he's not on the Magic Johnson level, but he's definitely a pretty good guy, all things considered.
yeah, he's all right as far as famous people go, especially pro wrestlers. Anyway, so Hulk Hogan, not too bright when it comes to the computers. Not a man of machines.
Never would have guessed.
No. So this is a video of it. I guess his son trying to teach him how to use the old AOL Instant Messenger. Pretty funny. The only question is like, how does he types with like one finger, right? But it's sort of like, how does he do that? I mean, it's like how does Strong Bad type with boxing gloves? His fingers are so big. They must need like a special Hulk keyboard. I don't know how he does it, but he's doing it.
You know, that's actually kind of a valid question because when I did meet Magic Johnson, he could have picked me up by my head easily. His fingers were gigantic. I can't imagine him typing. I'm looking at my keyboard. His finger is bigger than a key.
Yeah, I don't know how it's done. So watch this video and look closely at his Hulk hands and see how he types on a laptop keyboard.
So a while ago, as you all know, we were at Otakon, the anime convention. We're not going to talk about that today because it's not anime day and none of you probably care. But at that convention, our friends Pete and James having a fancy video camera he wanted to play with, and Pete being, well, reckless and crazy, decided that they wanted to go to the 4chan panel and record a little documentary, kind of as a joke about these, weirdos in 4chan.
Oh, that's a smart move.
Well, Pete came back a little bit shaken, like actually a little bit shaken, not jokingly. And then he showed us the video, and we basically, as a group, came to the conclusion that it's not quite as funny and just, oh, haha, look at those guys. There's actually kind of a serious point here about the future of the internet and anonymity and internet culture and people culture and hive minds and emergent behavior and all these things. And it was kind of frightening, the fact that 4chan, just a bunch of weird kids yelling stuff at an anime convention, when viewed through the eyes of the researcher, actually illustrates a lot of very important points about socialization.
Yeah, I kind of wish I was some sort of anthropologist or something, because then I'd go there and I'd be like, oh, see, this is, like that, and this is like that. But I'm
Sadly,
just some nerd.
The only things we can really say are words we learned in Ghost in the Shell. We can talk about second-order simulacra.
Yeah, because I know what that is.
It's actually pretty simple. It happens in both Ghost in the Shell standalone complexes.
I probably understand the concept. I just don't know what concept it is that those words represent.
Well, think about the plot. But anyway, so we want to talk a little bit about anonymity and places like 4chan or whatever, X-chans.
Well, there's two things you got to take into account here. There's the technology of anonymity, and then there's the sort of psychology of anonymity, both on the internet, because I don't know how to deal with anonymity elsewhere other than the internet.
Well, you could wear a mask all the time and not carry ID.
I guess. But when it comes to the technology of anonymity, there's pretty much two different levels. There's, are you 100% guaranteed anonymous? There is no way anyone could possibly find out who you are, who did that. And then there's, you're basically anonymous, where, sure, they could technically find out if they jump through a lot of technological hoops, but they effectively no way of proving who you are.
Now, what they basically break down to, you can call these absolute anonymity and trust-based anonymity.
Yeah.
Now, trust-based we should talk about first, because that is the vast majority of anonymity on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, all those places where you can go through an anonymizer so people can't see where you're coming from on a website, or you go through a proxy just so people can't track you, or you log into a site like Fark, but you didn't link your real name or anything to it, so it's just like Jahar478, and no one knows that is actually Rim from Geeknights. While you're anonymous, functionally, as far as anyone who accesses that site or whatever is concerned, you had to trust someone along the way, because you can't really get anywhere on the internet without an IP address. And while there are varying levels of how close they could track you down, the fact remains that there is a point along the way where you had to trust someone enough to use them as your anonymity broker.
Pretty much the way it works, right, is let's say you're on the internet, and your computer has a real IP address, right? One computer, one IP address, you're on the real internet, right? So you go to a website, that website knows your IP address. Even if you encrypt all the traffic, you're not encrypting the IP addresses. The router needs to read those so it can send your packets the right way.
So if you want to go through one of those anonymizers, all right, now the website doesn't know, but the anonymizer knows. They know where you went and who you are.
Yeah,
they have both pieces of information.
The way those things work is basically there's a computer out there, and you connect to that computer, and so do like 100 other people or 1,000 other people. And then that computer goes to the website for you and then gives you the website. So now you can be effectively anonymous because if the website says, hey, who posted that? They go and they find the IP address of some computer somewhere and they say, we don't know. It could have been any of these thousands of people. We have no idea.
Granted, you have to trust that person perfectly because...
Yeah, that computer in the middle of nowhere might just... be logging your IP address, and it might tell them. And then
for all you know,
screwed.
that thing's being run by the FBI.
It
There's
could
really
be.
no way to know.
There's no way to know at all. Absolutely none.
And with websites or anything, it's the same way. I set up for an account on /.infarct, but they know what IP addresses I come from. In fact, over time, they probably have a list of all the different IP addresses I've come from. They could probably figure out, just by looking at the history of me accessing FARC with my account, where I work, where I live, where I go on vacation.
You might be thinking you're real clever. You might go to like a public library or some other publicly accessible computer, log in and post stuff on the internet somewhere.
All right, well, one, a lot of those places make you log in with a student ID or a library card ID.
Or there's a camera and they can say, this was posted around this time. Let's see who was sitting there at this time. Oh,
Yep.
look, it was Scott. There he is on the camera.
And you think, oh, I'm behind a net in a big corporation. They can't find me. Well, guess what? They can figure out the corporation, and from there they can say, all right, corporation, who is accessing this site? We know you keep logs to prevent porn.
So, unless you know that you are behind something where there is sufficiently a large number of other people and that the thing you are behind is you trustworthy and actually making you anonymous, and that along the way there is at least one point at which no logs are kept and there is no way to recover any logs and no one will talk, it's really hard to actually be for real 100% anonymous, because if someone goes through all the trouble, they can retrace every step and find you, because you need, or at least they can find your real IP address, and then at that point it's not too hard to find you from there.
Now, the few ways to get effectively true anonymity are to either compromise someone else's computer and do it very well to the point that you erase all traces of you being there, or at least all the logs of where you came from.
Yeah,
but
so
even
I
then,
hack into someone else's Windows crap computer, I use that as my go-between, and then I leave and I make sure that even if someone gets a hold of that crap computer or someone at the ISP takes a look, there's no way, absolutely no way they can figure out I was the one who did it.
Another way is to compromise on a more broad sense certain parts of the network, internet talking protocols. I'm not going to go into tech detail at all about this.
Yeah, if you own some big router.
Or not even that, if you can compromise, or there's shady things you can do at various levels, depending on what you're trying to access, where you can spoof or make it look like you're coming from somewhere else than you really are. But even then, that's very difficult, doesn't always work very well, and even then, you might leave traces behind. Currently, the best way for normal people to get true anonymity is to use someone else's unsecured wireless access point while you're on it to not do anything that could link back to you. So don't check your email, don't visit the websites you normally visit, don't log into your MySpace, don't look at your friend's MySpace, don't Google for anything that in any way could link back to you.
Don't run any services on your machine that someone might be able to detect and find out what computer you are using.
And make sure that there's no cameras around and no one can see you accessing that thing.
So it's pretty hard to be actually anonymous. But you can be pretty much anonymous because, like, if I just go to 4chan and I post something, or if I just go to /, make an account and post something, no one fucking knows, and no one's gonna bother to look. I could go on /, or Dig and make an account and post something that's like, fuckity fuck, your mother sucks, and no one's gonna know. They're not gonna know who posted that. They have no idea that's Scott from Geeknights. No clue, and they're never gonna, because it'd be so much effort to figure that out. And Dig could probably figure it out pretty easily, but they're not even going to bother. It's just not going to happen.
Now, I have a lot of things to say about absolute anonymity, particularly if it were ubiquitous and easy, and things related to, along those lines, terrorism and global nations that have nothing to do with, I don't know, location or anything like that. But I think that's really beyond the scope of this right now.
Yes. I think what we have to go venture into is John Gabriel territory here.
Now, socially, we'll leave all the tech aside. We could go into more specifics in another show someday, but generally, there's a lot of writing and literature about the idea of anonymity. And a lot of this came out in the early days of the internet when sociologists were looking at how people react and how people write and how people interact with each other when they're anonymous or when they can be anonymous.
Well, think about back in the day before the internet's what anonymity was all about. Usually when someone wanted to write like a book that they might get in trouble for, or when someone wanted to do something without getting any recognition, or when someone maybe did something great, but they didn't want to get all the credit for it. They wanted to stay, hiding, and they didn't want any attention from anybody.
Or in like small group theory and collaboration theory in these social situations and studies where they looked at ideas of if people are collaborating openly versus if people are collaborating in a way where you can't know who proposed what idea. And there's a lot of effects where some people who might have been more reluctant to voice their opinions will suddenly voice them more often. And some people might say less because they don't want to do something they won't get credit for. And there's a fascinating field of study that, again, is a little bit beyond the scope of this show.
The point is that people mostly want to be anonymous when they want to avoid positive or negative attention. They want to send things out, and they want to avoid things coming back to them.
Now, a lot of times this just ends up being something like trolling or unpopular opinions.
Yes. But other times it can actually be serious, like, I want to make a charitable donation, but I do not want anyone to know it was me.
Or, I am posting from North Korea. Get me out of here. Help.
Yes, but I don't want to be killed within the next 10 minutes.
Seriously, it sucks.
Yes, it does. All right. So, you get on this internet where suddenly, even it's pretty hard to become not anonymous. I mean, you're always going to be not technically 100%, anonymous, but it's pretty hard to avoid the effective anonymousness as far as, socializing and communicating on the internet is concerned in a practical, everyday sort of sense.
In fact, I think for this discussion, we actually have to break it up into three terms. I mean, on one hand, there's absolute anonymity, and on the other hand, there's verifiable identity. But then there's the middle ground. I don't know what to call it. I don't know. Attributed anonymity, where you are not linked to your persona. No one knows that Shezar is Rim from Geeknights. But at the same time, on Farker/Dot, Shezar is a valid account. And if someone posts from Shezar, people are 99% sure that that was actually that guy talking. So they don't know who it is, but they can link all the things that one person says together. And as a result, that online identity can have its own opinions and its own view from other people.
Well, I think what that is that when you say you write a book, say by Anonymous, right? That's sort of like, okay, we don't have no idea who wrote this book. We have no clue. It could have been, even if there's another book also by Anonymous, we don't know it's the same person. We have absolutely no clue. We can't do anything. All we can do is guess based on the contents of the book itself. But if a book is, say, by, I don't know, Shezar, that's like a pen name. No one knows your physical real-world identity, but you have created this new proxy identity that instead of you personally, Rim, were receiving the credits or the negative impact and, feedback from whatever you've put out, you're able to put out through a proxy, sort of in the same way you use an internet proxy to put out, and the receiving goes to the proxy. And you can sort of choose to, when stuff is received by the proxy, whether to take it to yourself or to leave it out there on the proxy level.
Now, even here, I think there's a lot of fascinating discussion about how a lot of people have very different online personas from what they have in real life. Or
people have multiple online personas in different places. Like on Facebook, they have sort of like a nice guy, and on Craigslist, they have a wheeler dealer. And on eBay, they have a wheeler dealer.
Yeah.
And then on Slashdot, they're just sort of a nerd.
Well, in the realm, I had, my main guy, Alcindar, who was an elf, and he was all cool and whatever. But then I had a cute, who was a girl, who existed solely to scam pimply nerds out of valuable magical items.
And then give them to the guy?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. That's sort of sexist, but whatever.
Well, the thing is, it was mostly guys playing that game.
Yes, it was mostly practical.
I mean, even World of Warcraft is pretty popular today. It's really popular, and it's kind of... There's
a lot
more,
of women playing it.
Yeah, but back in the day, like in the first couple of MMOs, there were like 5 girls total.
Yeah.
But, or like on Fark. I'm an asshole on Fark. Pretty much 100%. I post only when I'm going to anger someone.
Man, that's a whole nother topic of discussion of anonymousness is gender and race and all those sorts of things just sort of go away.
Yeah. In fact, I know multiple women who post with generic, gender-neutral, or even masculine screen names just to avoid all the crap that comes when, OMG, a girl is in our forums, I shall hit on her.
But at the same time, it sort of perpetuates the impression that there's not so many women. And I think if more of them posted, like, yeah, we're a whole bunch of women, people would say, oh, there are a whole bunch of women. Like, about half the internet's.
Well, it's not
and then
just
people
that,
would
but
stop their bullshit.
in general, I mean, people treat the things that men say and women say oftentimes differently. And the internet is an exception to that in that you can't really know if someone's actually a woman or a man. And a lot of times someone with a neutral or opposite screen name will be treated very differently from how they might have been treated in real life.
Be interesting.
I have noticed that because I once used a screen name that was kind of gender neutral, but I learned from talking to people in South America, of all things, this is back in the ICQ days, that a lot of people thought it was a feminine name and a lot of people thought I was a girl.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't intending that. There was no way. I mean, it's not like I use...
A lot of people think you're a girl anyway, so it's not,
Well, now that I got rid of the mustache, I guess, and the neck beard. But I think that is, again, a whole topic for another show.
It seems like this whole show is just saying, wow, look at all these really interesting, intellectual discussions you could have about anonymity. It is such a vast and complicated thing. Look at it. Ooh.
Hence, I want to narrow it down to a very specific kind of anonymity. The kind that Pete and James saw with their own eyes at Otakon. The 4chan world. I mean, I'm going to explain very briefly how 4chan works, because I know a lot of people hear about it. It's kind of like this murky part of the internet that they avoid, full of penis girls and scariness, if they even know that. And not that many people go there, except the people who are kind of into it. Basically, it is a site where not only are you anonymous in the sense that your screen name is not actually linked to your real identity in any way that users can get to, it goes one step further than that. You cannot prove that you are you, and you can post as anyone. People who post and put their name or something are generally looked down upon. And they even have a system that was built in where you can use a hash to prove that you were the same person. And those people are universally despised.
Yeah, generally, the way 4chan works is you can type in any username you want just about every time you post, and that's the username that'll show up, and no one knows who's who, and that's sort of the way they like it. They don't want anyone to know who it was, so, all those dick girls could be one guy. It could also be 1,000 people. You have no idea.
So think about
this. They don't want to know.
This is a community where people are contributing content and interacting
the whole
with
thing
each
could be
other.
just one guy, but no, it's probably not.
We know it's at least 2 guys.
Yeah.
But think about it. People are talking to each other, submitting content, creating meta content based on that content, having social relations, all these things, and yet they've removed any sort of anchor point as to personality. There's no more, I am an individual talking to this individual, and this third individual is commenting. It is, I am throwing with no possible chance of attribution. No one will ever know what works I have wrought.
Retribution. Oh, attribution also. Yeah.
I meant attribution, but I
Yes.
guess retribution is also true.
Any sort of asterisk-bution.
There aren't so many. I don't know if you get ablution.
That's not, that's blue. It's not bu.
I
Bution.
guess you're right.
It has to be bution. No butions.
Anyway, so you throw these ideas out there, and people respond to them, but you can't know who's actually responding, and you're basically stripped of all sense of identity and kind of subsumed by this massive anonymous blob that ends up having almost emergent behavior. Like, it almost has a mind of its own. You're not a person anymore. You're just a neuron in the 4chan brain.
Well, I think what it is that, when people, act normally in life, when they're not anonymous in any way, they have inhibitions that prevent them from doing certain things. They have filters on things they intake and things they put out, and they're not just gonna do whatever. But when you're somewhere like 4chan, and there's just no chance of anything, everyone just lets 100% completely loose, and it's 100% honest. and no one gives a shit about anything. So you're going to get like the most natural of instinctual reactions and such, biological urges and things all coming out in writing and imagery and sometimes audio and maybe even video, but rarely.
Now, as we started thinking about this, looking at 4chan, because it's 4channel, it's not like 4chan, like a little cute thing. At least that's what I've been told. It kind of puts it in a frightening new light, because if that is the emergent behavior of the collected unconscious or the collected unbridled inhibitions of the people on the internet, that kind of says a lot about humanity.
Or at least the humanity that speaks English and is on the internet. It's on
or
4chan.
At least the humanity that has decided that they want to be a part of this anonymous idea.
Like, we'd have to set up 4chans and, like, get, I guess, other people on them. Because even though, right, 4chan is anonymous, we kind of know that it's mostly, anime fans, high school, young college type people, mostly males in the U.S.
Granted, I think a lot of that is just due to the fact that older people just aren't hip to it. I mean, I think I'm above the age where I could have gotten into 4chan.
4chan is good for, occasionally. Like, it's sort of like this world where I kind of understand what goes on there, but I don't enjoy going there. And occasionally funny pictures pop out of it, and I enjoy looking at them. And sometimes not so funny pictures pop out, and I don't want to look at those.
Well, see, I look at it kind of like the high culture in France, where they have like the super fancy fashion show where women wear like boat anchors and like crazy things that no human being could possibly wear as high fashion. And then people who are more reasonable see, hey, they're inspired by that, and they make something, and then that becomes the high fashion for normal people. And then it filters down and filters down and filters down, and eventually a knockoff of a knockoff of a knockoff is in Walmart for $5.95.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of internet jokes and internet memes.
A shirt with a picture of an anchor on it.
Yeah. But you see a lot of these internet memes that get big. If you trace back their origins, a lot of them came from 4chan.
Yeah, I mean, lolcats. I mean, if they didn't completely originate in 4chan made them big. Yeah.
And while not just 4chan, I mean, Something Awful is kind of like the exact opposite of 4chan in that regard. It's kind of like if 4chan is evolution, then Something Awful is intelligent design.
Something like that. I mean, Something Awful, people sort of know who you are. It's not super anonymous.
People
it's just as anonymous as every other site.
People there take attribution, and they try to make memes. 4chan, it just happens.
Yeah. And it's sort of tough because Something Awful does seem like when they produce product, like it is more amusing more often. But 4chan is sort of like this pit where there's a whole bunch of excess stuff in there. And sometimes interesting things can come out of the excess stuff, even if the excess stuff itself is not what you're looking for. It's almost like I bet the Something Awful people go and look at the 4chan, and then they make their stuff based on what they see there. It's like you go and you wade in a pool for a while, and you come back and you pick some leeches off, and then you find you got a quarter stuck in your toe, and you're like, there it is. Got it.
See, the really fascinating thing to me is that 4chan very often illustrates the principle of emergent behavior very directly. And if you think about it, when someone's on 4chan, they're not engaging in a continuous thread of conversation as one being. What they're doing is they're seeing the current state of the 4chan world as a snapshot, and they are basically making a one-off decision of what to contribute to that exact snapshot at that moment.
Or what to take away.
True.
Yeah.
And as a result, this kind of emergent behavior where things become popular or not popular or morph or become self-referential, not based on the decision of any one person, but based on the collective, unconscious, and undecided decision of the masses. Like, people don't decide seeking fuck yeah is going to become our thing. It just happens. No one person thought that's going to become the thing.
Yeah, it's like on Dig, right? You actually have a system of voting where technically everyone votes, and if enough people dig something, it rises to the top. And that's supposed to be, that's sort of like institutionalized what 4chan is without any sort of software to back it up. On Dig, someone with a bunch of friends digs something, and then all those friends see it on their RSS feeds and they dig it. And then it gets a little boost, so it gets a little bit of exposure, so enough other people see it and they dig it, and then it's on the front page. whether it's actually something the community really likes or not. You should see how many things get to the front page and then get a zillion berries, because once it's on the front page, all these other people see it, and then they all get rid of it.
Like me,
Yeah.
who buries like 10 times the things he digs.
Yes. But meanwhile, in 4chan, there's no software backing up what's popular or what's not. There's no, person with a bunch of friends getting all their friends to do something. There's no scheming. It's some guy puts a picture up of Seeking and it says, fuck yeah, on it. Okay, a guy put a picture up. Then some other guy says, Seeking, fuck yeah. Was it the same guy or was it a different guy? I don't know. There's no way to know. It could have been one guy saying Seeking, fuck yeah, the whole time. But it's on there a lot. A lot of people, or supposedly more than one person, is saying Seeking, fuck yeah, in a lot of threads all of a sudden. And then you realize when you go to the 4chan panel at Otakon, when 100 people or more are chanting, Seeking,
Fuck yeah!
Seeking,
Fuck yeah!
Seeking,
Fuck yeah!
that it became popular on its own without any software or anything like that. It just did. It caught on like fire catching on wood.
I mean, once James and Pete get this documentary fully together, we're going to figure out a way to get it out to you people. Because you can
Probably
see...
some sort of YouTube in the experimental feed, I imagine.
You can see this happening in real time. Because remember, the people going to the 4chan panel, they're all 4chan people or people like Pete, but most of them are 4chan people. And they don't know each other. They can't know each other.
Well, some of the people know each other. Like if you bring your friend to the 4chan
Well,
panel.
yeah, but at the same time, like, they don't know each other on 4chan.
No, I mean, the person sitting next to you in that line could be like the guy who posts every penis girl on all of 4chan, and you have no way of knowing.
And these people, and Pete said this, and watching the video, I start to agree with it. A lot of them don't just go to 4chan and these things because it's funny, or they like to look at these penis girls, or whatever. They go because they almost worship the idea of anonymity, and they're serious about it. The idea of being anonymous is so liberating that, and I'm dead serious, it's like religion for some of these people.
Yeah.
And when I say some, I mean a significant number.
Well, I mean, you look at the way they behave in the line, right? And basically, there's a lot of mumbling. Well, it's not mumbling, but it sounds like mumbling. It's a lot of talking, and people are saying things to each other. And occasionally, someone says something that catches fire. And before you know it, half the line is chanting it, right? And then it sort of dies out as people get tired of it. And then everyone's talking. And eventually, someone says something that catches on, and everyone chants it. And then they get bored of it. And
No one was directing this.
no one knows who started it. No one was directing it, saying, okay, guys, let's do this chant now. Because if you did that, people just go like, boo, sit down. But everyone's talking to each other. There's a lot of talking. Probably don't ever even met the people you're talking to. They're all strangers. You don't know who they are, really. You might recognize them if you see them again. Some of them are in costume. Guy wearing a V-mask.
A lot of people wearing V-masks.
A guy with a V-mask, and he has bracelets that say epic fail on them. You don't know who that is. That could be me. It's not me, but it could have been.
But they're a 4chaner.
Yeah, you know who it isn't? Me. But that's it.
Clever cover story.
Yes. But I mean, shit like that goes down. They behave in the line the same way the website works. And the thing is, they don't even say, all right, guys, we're going to go to the line for 4chan panel, or we're going to go to the 4chan panel and behave, we're going to mimic 4chan. They don't think that. It just happens. That's just the way it is.
There was no premeditation. And any other crowd of people, even if they have a like purpose, like if you went to a FARC party or whatever and lined up, or a Slashdot gathering or a lug, it'd be really hard to get a group of people standing in line for an event like that to yell anything without some sort of active director, some sort of mover that pushes the crowd into a direction, and the crowd being willing to submit to that. In this, no one was moving, no one was pushing, and ideas just coalesced independently. And I think the anonymity and the fact that these people are so into it this crowd, because of who they were and what they cared about, even though they didn't all know each other in any real capacity, things could catch on and die out so much more quickly than they do among normal people. Because these people totally give themselves up to the anonymity.
Yep. And while, on a community like 4chan, these things happen, and in a community like Slashdot or Dig, these things don't happen so much. If you look at the internet as a whole is just like the 4chan. It's the macrocosms and the microcosms.
I think 4chan is just a lot faster. It converges quicker onto an ideal, but then it discards that ideal just as quickly.
But, you know, if you have a microcosm of anything, that's what happens. It's just a lot more efficient. You know, if you had a universe in a jar, you could probably see the beginning and the end of the universe, of that little tiny universe, within the beginning and the ending of the universe that we live in.
True.
So if you have a 4chan in a bottle, and you're living in a giant 4chan that's bigger and slower, you can sort of see the past and the future in your little jar.
I just find it fascinating how absolutely quickly a crowd of 4chaners can come to a consensus as to what obscenity to scream at any given moment.
Yeah, I mean, plus, if you look at the internet as a whole, right? The internet as a whole, rumble, 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 news groups, rumble, 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 /dot, peer-to-peer, rumble, 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 dig, YouTube, MySpace, rumble, 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 and it'll be something else. It just stuff comes and goes, just the same way people are chanting stuff and then they're not chanting stuff. Everyone's anonymous in this big internet sea, and different things come and go, and
Yep.
that's how it goes down.
4chan is just lower level. It's the next step beyond that. It's kind of the next progression, and I don't know. I really can't let myself be subsumed by this kind of anonymous idea. Maybe
No,
I'm just,
I have better things to do.
well, not even that. Even if it were on a more philosophical or larger scale, I'm too proud of a person and I'm too self-determined to let myself be subsumed by that.
Yeah, I
But
do.
at the same time, Peter, the guy who was there recording all this with James, he ended up joining in and yelling with them, and afterward he said that he really couldn't help it. And he is just as strong-willed as we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I probably would have yelled, like, "Sea King, fuck yeah." I mean, back in the high school days, we used to have some fun chanting action. You know, chanting is fun. You go to a baseball game, you say, you know, let's go
Yeah,
Mets.
it's like that scene in
You
Dead Poet Society where he has him walking. He tells the class, just walk around in the courtyard. That's your assignment. And they're all just kind of walking around. And over time, they end up kind of walking in a line. And then they start marching in a line. And then they start marching in a circle, very militaristic. And then he's like, I think you've learned the lesson.
Mm-hmm. So, anything else we got to say about this besides an obligatory John Gabriel mention?
I think that's pretty much it. Mainly just because we're going to have to do more shows about this in the future. We've already gone a little long.
Shitcock.
So, Penny Arcade has summed up one of the biggest failings of anonymity in all the world. And 4chan...
We've talked about this before on the show, I'm sure.
4chan mitigates this by being so anonymous that it doesn't matter. And other things don't deal with it very well. Counter-Strike does not deal with it very well.
No, it doesn't.
But basically, Penny Arcade made a comic entitled John Gabriel's Greater Internet Fuckwad Theory. And I propose that this is
Gabriel's Internet Fuckwad Law.
That's what I was about to say. This is not a theory. This is a law of the interaction of human beings.
Yep. Normal person plus anonymity plus audience equals total fuckwad.
And it's a picture of a nice
or
guy.
complete fuckwad. Or I forget the
It's
exact
total
word.
fuckwad.
Is it total fuckwad?
It's a picture of a nice guy, plus, a question mark, anonymity, plus an audience, an audience. And the total fuckwad image is just a guy yelling shitcock.
And his face is all mangled.
And if you've ever played Counter-Strike, while no one may have actually said the word shitcock to you, you know exactly what that word means. You know what shitcocking is.
Yeah.
If someone says someone was shitcocking me, you can imagine what kinds of words they were saying.
Yep. Basically, someone's anonymous. So they can say something to you, and you'll have no idea who said it. They're going to say something shitcocky. That's how people are. Except for very few people.
Yep. I will, while I don't shitcock, I have on occasion anonymously trolled people on some websites.
While I am not a regular shitcockery,
I've done it in an ironic sense. I'll admit that
I
too.
have shat cocks in the past. And I probably will shit more cocks in the future.
Mostly playing Counter-Strike.
Maybe. Maybe playing some other games. Or possibly not even playing games at all.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.